Hello friends, from today we will see the cleavage. Last time we have seen the types of eggs. So if egg is fertilized with the sperm or egg and sperm meeting takes place with the help of fertilization, it produces a cell which is called as a zygote. This zygote is also called as early embryo or fertilized egg cell. Now what happens with this fertilized egg cell? As the embryogenesis is started in every organism, that is, as the zygote is produced by meeting of sperm and egg, the embryogenesis is started with the division of cells, that is the division of zygote. So the division of cells is called as a cleavage. So as the zygote is produced, that zygotic cell or early embryo, or you can also say that fertilized egg cell, start dividing. So it continuously started dividing, and that division of cells is called as a cleavage. So what are the characteristics of this cleavage or characteristics of this division of cells of a zygote? Now these cell division is rapid and continuous. That is, continuously the zygote divides to produce more and more cells, and that cell division is rapid, that is fast. Cells divide with the help of a mitosis. Then when zygotic cells start dividing, as the division takes place or as the division is continuous, the cell size is decreased. So if you consider this is a zygote, then it divides to produce two cells. So these two cells which are produced of the zygote have a smaller size than the zygotic cell. Again, these cells produce four cells which have more small size than these two cells. So as the continuously cell division takes place, cell size is decreased. So continuously cell size is decreased. So only cell division takes place, but cell size is not increasing in these cells. Now, so that such continuously cell division takes place and it produces a cluster of cells, and these cluster of cells up to 16 cell stage produces a ball of cells. So such ball of cells is produced by continuous cell division of a zygotic cell, and when at least 16 cells are produced, that 16 celled cluster of cells is called as the morula, and again cell division is continued up to the stage that is called as the blastula. So you can say that the cleavage of an early embryo takes place up to the blastula stage. Now the cells which are produced by continuous cell division of a zygote, that cells are called as the blastomeres, or you can also say that different cells derived from the cleavage up to blastula stage are called as the blastomeres. Now one more important thing here is that the cluster of cells is produced which have the same size as the original zygote, and so this is the reason why cell size is decreased continuously, because the size of a original zygote is to be maintained, but the cell number is to be increased. So for this reason cell size is decreased in each and every cell division that takes place in the cleavage of early embryo. Cleavage in a particular egg is dependent upon the amount of yolk in that particular egg. Now the yolk produces the hindrance for passing a cleavage furrow through the egg. Now as we have already studied the types of eggs according to the amount of yolk, when the yolk amount is low, that eggs are alecithal or isolecithal kinds of eggs, and these eggs contain low amount of the yolk, and such a low amount of yolk cannot produce any kind of hindrance for passing a cleavage furrow through the fertilized egg cell. So if you see, this is the alecithal or microlecithal kind of egg, and these are the yolk particles which are uniformly distributed and their quantity is low. A cleavage furrow can be easily passed through the egg. So the amount of yolk in the alecithal or isolecithal kinds of eggs cannot produce any kind of hindrance for passing a cleavage furrow through the egg, and two complete separate cells can be easily produced by first cleavage furrow, and by progressive cleavage furrow also the blastomeres or cells are produced. So when a complete egg is divided by a cleavage furrow, such a type of cleavage is called as holoblastic cleavage, because holo is complete. So when complete egg is divided because of the first cleavage furrow, such type of a cleavage is called as holoblastic cleavage. And holoblastic type of cleavage takes place in the isolecithal kinds of eggs. Then such a cleavage, that is holoblastic cleavage, also takes place in the mesolecithal kinds of eggs, even if it contains moderate amount of the yolk. That moderate amount of a yolk also cannot produce any kind of hindrance for completely passing the cleavage furrow through the egg cell, and therefore mesolecithal kinds of eggs also undergo a process of holoblastic cleavage. On the other hand, if we see the polylecithal or telolecithal or centrolecithal kinds of eggs which contain high amount of the yolk, this high amount of a yolk produces hindrance for passing the cleavage furrow through the egg. So if you see the polylecithal or telolecithal kind of egg where the vegetal pole contains high amount of the yolk, this is the animal pole and this is the vegetal pole of the egg, and the vegetal pole of the egg, the vegetal pole of telolecithal egg contain high amount of a yolk, and such a high amount of a yolk produces hindrance for passing a cleavage furrow throughout the egg. So the cleavage takes place only at the animal pole. So such type of a cleavage where only half egg is divided or partially egg is divided, such a type of a cleavage is called as meroblastic cleavage, because mero is half or mero is incomplete, or it is also called as a partial, and therefore it is termed as meroblastic cleavage. So meroblastic cleavage takes place in the telolecithal or centrolecithal kinds of eggs. In the centrolecithal kinds of eggs, the cleavage type is called as a superficial cleavage. So the details of that type of a cleavage we will also see in our next lectures. So first we will see the details of holoblastic cleavage, and then we will see the details of meroblastic cleavage, how it takes place and in which type of eggs it takes place. There are two types of cleavages, holoblastic cleavage and meroblastic cleavage. So in the holoblastic cleavage, holo is complete. As complete egg is divided by a cleavage furrow in the holoblastic cleavage, such type of a cleavage are called as total, entire or complete cleavage. And Holoblastic cleavage takes place in the isolecithal and mesolecithal kinds of eggs. Then meroblastic cleavage. In this case, mero is partial or half, or it is also called as incomplete. That is, half egg or partial egg is divided because of the cleavage furrow, and therefore it is called as incomplete or partial cleavage. Now, such type of a cleavage takes place in the macrolecithal eggs, that is the eggs which contain high amount of the yolk, which mainly includes telolecithal eggs which contain at the vegetal pole high amount of the yolk, and the centrolecithal kinds of eggs where at the center high amount of yolk is present. These are the types of cleavage. There are two main types of cleavage, holoblastic cleavage and meroblastic cleavage. Now, the holoblastic cleavage which takes place in the isolecithal eggs are radial holoblastic cleavage which takes place in the amphioxus and sea urchin, that is a echinoderm. Then next is the rotational holoblastic cleavage. It takes place in the humans, that is in the mammals and nematodes. In the nematodes, the example is C. elegans. Then spiral holoblastic cleavage. It takes place in mollusks, annelids and flatworms. Next is the bilateral holoblastic cleavage. It takes place in the tunicates. Then again holoblastic cleavage takes place in the mesolecithal eggs, and it is named as displaced radial cleavage. It takes place in the amphibians, that is in the frogs and toads. Then the meroblastic cleavage, which is the partial cleavage, it takes place in the telolecithal eggs, which is called as the discoidal meroblastic cleavage. Example is birds, fishes and reptiles. The next is the bilateral meroblastic cleavage. It takes place in the eggs of cephalopod mollusks. Then centrolecithal eggs. In the centrolecithal eggs, superficial cleavage takes place. It takes place in the insects. Now we will study the details of one by one.